welcome back to Speculative Dude Presents. I'm your host, Speculative Dude. Now, it's been a while, I know, and for that I apologize. But, as everyone knows, life gets in the way. So, I promised everyone I would have a review of the movie Redline. And, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really want to do it. I mean, I knew it was a car movie, I knew it had a dubious reputation, but once I actually sat down and watched it, it was pretty crappy. Pretty terrible. So, let's get this one over with. This is my review of Redline. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are actually several movies by this name, and even an anime movie. By the way, if you want to watch one that's actually fun to watch, go watch the anime. However, this is the only one made in 2007 that's actually about car racing. The others are about the Redline train. So, what's so special about this movie? Well, for one, it has Eddie Griffin in it, and as usual, he's a pretty entertaining guy. He's also the only actor that I could actually name off the top of my head. I can remember some of the other characters, but boy, they're not easy. Now, the main character is Sam, who is a mechanic, and a woman, because we have to have the joke where someone goes in, asks for Sam, and then is shocked to find out she's a woman. The butt of this joke is actually Eddie Griffin's character, who happens to be also a record executive, who happens to notice that Sam happens to be the front woman on an extremely mediocre band, who he instantly gives a record deal to. But before things progress too far, we find out that Eddie Griffin is also a member of a rather, I wouldn't say notorious, but fairly well-known gambling circle who likes to bet on auto races. Then we come to character number 2, Carlo, who is the brother of one of the drivers in the betting circle. He's coming home from the military, despite having facial hair that would never be allowed in the military. But we'll leave that aside. He comes home, happens to go out to dinner with his brother, gets caught in a fight, and meets Sam. Well, of course, they instantly hit it off. But that's for later. Eventually, Carlo's brother gets into an accident at one of the races and dies, while racing against Sam, ironically. Now, one thing that I will say separates this movie from movies like, say, for example, Fast and Furious, is that while some of the newer Fast and Furious movies have given a little more focus to the higher-end cars, the earlier movies, which were made before this time, focused on more street racing, whereas you have your tuners. You know, your Evos, your Supras, your 240SXs, those cars. You know, this one focuses on high-end sports cars, and I mean supercars. Celine S7s, Mercedes SLRs. There's somebody who has an old Cobra 427, excuse me. There's a Carrera GT. There's a Lamborghini Diablo. There are all these. This one focuses on the high-end, super expensive sports cars, hypercars, supercars, whatever you want to call them. That's where this focus is. So, as I said, these guys in this betting circle are extremely rich, and you find out that Carlo's uncle is, well, quite addicted to gambling. Supposedly he's a movie mogul, but they never actually say what he actually does, at least not well. It's also implied that he's into a lot of other illegal activities, and that betting is how he kind of makes his money in a panic. In fact, several times throughout the movie, he makes bets and either wins big or loses completely, and at the end of the movie, he will lose completely, as he tries to blackmail Samantha, Sam, into winning a race, which she purposely throws at the end. So, I really don't have anything positive to say about this movie. The end of the movie is Sam's mother gets kidnapped by Carlo's uncle to blackmail her into racing for him, because not only is she the owner of, not only is she the front woman of their band, she's also the best mechanic around and best race driver. So all of these things together means she has to race for Carlo's uncle. At which point she finally gets a call that says, "Hey, your mom is safe." So she hits the brakes and lets Carlo win the race. So therefore, Carlo's uncle loses all his money. This movie to me is very ridiculous. I mean, not only is the entire movie ridiculous. At one point, Eddie Griffin, is the record exec, is on the plane with a bunch of people. One of his lady friends decides, "I want out." For some reason, decides she wants off the plane, so they land on a desert highway, drop her off, and then take off again. I mean, it's that kind of ridiculous movie. I really don't have anything positive to say about it. I mean, it's so ridiculously over the top in some cases that you could laugh at it, but in a lot of ways, it's not even fun to watch for its ridiculousness. One thing that I do remember actually from back in the day when this was in theaters, was I remember the advertising, and they had claimed that this movie was going to be a Fast and Furious killer. Now, I get what they were going for with that, because at this time, Fast and Furious had just come off of their third movie, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, which even now is still the lowest grossing of the Fast and Furious movies. So, now most people know that I actually enjoy the movie, but in the theaters, it didn't do that well, or at least not as well as expected. However, this movie didn't do as well as expected either. Comparing the two, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift had a budget of roughly $85 million, and its final box office gross was just shy of $160 million, so a little less than doubling its budget. If you put in the marketing in that, it probably made a little bit of a profit, but not much. So that's all right. It ended up basically starting the series afresh with the fourth Fast and the Furious movie. But as I said, it wasn't a flop. That's not what can be said for Redline. Redline, granted, it only had a budget of $26 million. However, its worldwide box office gross was just over $6 million. So it lost more than 75% of its budget. It wasn't even able to recoup 25% of its budget. That's not including marketing. So it did not do well. So for a Fast and the Furious killer, and also now that we see how the Fast and Furious series is still going, I think we can tell that the Fast and Furious killer was overstated. This movie, if you like it, okay. I'd have to scratch my head why, as none of the actors have ever gone on to do anything particularly special. Like I said, the best known actor in the entire series was Eddie Griffin, and he was basically playing Eddie Griffin. It's like the same character he plays and everything. The guy who knows how to talk, knows how to work in front of the camera, knows how to tell a few jokes here and there to be charming, and that's about it. He can't really do. He can't hold a movie on his own if it's an ensemble, supposed to be an ensemble movie like this, which it wasn't. Eddie Griffin did okay. Nobody else really did anything else. Nobody else would even go on to do anything particularly of note. So, this is a short review. Basically, like I said, I didn't enjoy this movie and really didn't have much to say about it. So, I would give this movie a D at best. If you want to see it for a bad movie, or a bad car movie at least, I could recommend it as a bad car movie. but don't expect it to be entertainingly bad like some others. I mean, as I said, say what you will about the Fast and the Furious franchise, they've at least been entertaining, even when they haven't been at their best. So, so that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Speculative Dude, out. Hello and welcome back to Speculative Dude Reviews, round 2 on today's double feature, and our second movie this time is Fast Track No Limits. Now, this movie is, despite my ragging on Redline, this movie I would have to say is probably the second worst car movie I've ever seen. And I will be eventually telling you guys what number 1 is. But, this movie is something else. I cannot think of one thing to recommend this movie. Well, I can think of one thing, but it's really, looking at this movie, it's like, it looks like a disaster from beginning to end. The only good thing I can say about it is that it has Erin Cahill in it. She's a wonderful actress. I remember her all the way back, from the early 2000s in Power Rangers Time Force, but she's been in a lot of stuff, and she's an excellent actress. I don't know anyone else who was in this movie, although, some of you might know some people, but I don't know anyone else who was in this movie, and it's badly written, badly acted for the most part. The story makes little to no sense, so, I guess that goes with the bad writing, but still, it's just like, who thought this was a good movie? I will say this, though, at least as far as I know, it didn't get a theatrical release. This is another one of the straight-to-videos. Now, surprisingly, this is not an Asylum film. Okay, this is not, as I said, even though it wasn't very good, it wasn't great, at least I should say. Movies like Street Racer, Born to Race, they had some redeeming factors, Street Racer suffered mostly because of its small budget. The acting was okay, with the exception of one or two characters. The acting was all right, and with Born to Race, while the acting actually wasn't bad, it just suffered, in my opinion, from a lot of cliches. And even the sequel, Born to Race 2, which I didn't talk about, again, is not a bad movie. It's just, it feels like it could have been better because, again, it goes through cliches. The main character has to learn the exact same lesson he learned in the first movie, except apparently he didn't learn it in the first movie. If you go back and I actually went back and watched it, and was like, oh, I guess he never really did learn how to get over his temper and, pay attention. So he has to learn that in the second movie. So, like I said, but still, those movies, at least, like I said, barring some execution problems, and as again in Street Racers, some budgetary problems, they could have been, they were all right. This movie, like I said, I don't, other than hiring Erin Cahill to play one of the characters, I don't know what they did right here. Let's start off with where the movie is supposed to take place. Now, I have no idea where it was actually filmed. Okay, I can't even find where it was at or the filming was done, but it's supposed to take place in Germany. Most of the actors are American, and very clearly American. One of the characters starts out as a pizza delivery guy, and the money they're using is American dollars. One of the, I guess you could call him the main bad guy, but he's not really a bad guy. But okay, the villain, whatever you're gonna call him, is supposed to be Russian, like a Russian mobster type guy. So it's like, okay, so you have Americans as most of the characters, being kind of looked over by a Russian mobster in Germany. Like, somehow, I'm thinking this doesn't quite add up, As with most of these street racing movies, it revolves around underground street racing. Here's where another one of the problems comes in. Same problem that was in Street Racer, only here it wasn't covered up as well. Now, someone who knows cars, myself, lots of other people out there, I'm sure a lot of people watching this video know a few things about cars, when cars were made, what cars are better than other cars at racing, or at least in certain circumstances of racing. So, the main bad guy, this Russian mobster, his championship car is the best car in this racing area, of anyone on there, is an early 90s 1JZ Supra. And you look at it and go, like, that's supposed to be the car, supposed to be the champ. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a good car, and if modded correctly, the 1JZ Supra could be quite good. But it's not that good. And it's like, was it really that hard to come across a 2JZ Supra? A lot of the cars have a lot of body modifications. And if you look at the cars in the pack, a lot of them, though, are from the 80s and early 90s. Now, this movie was made in 2009. So, it's like, why most of these movies are from, or most of these cars are from the first half of the 90s or older, really doesn't make much sense. It's like, I really think they didn't work on their budget very well. Maybe you could say they blew their budget on location, but it's like, no, I don't buy that. Most of these cars have a lot of body mods to make them look fast, but it's one of those things where you listen to them and you can tell, no. I mean, I believe, if I remember right, at one point, one of the characters is driving an 87 supercharged MR2 with a body kit. Now, don't get me wrong, that was a fun car to drive. I got to drive around in one of those a couple of times. But it's not a competitive race car in a situation like they're showing. There's really, the driving, the racing makes no sense. So, our story starts out with, of course, Erin Cahill's character, of course, she owns a garage. Of course, what racing movie doesn't start out have somebody who owns a garage in it? Who's always one of the main characters, definitely. But anyway, she owns a garage for modding and tuning, and it's one of those situations where you look at it and it constantly looks like it's busy. It looks like they have constant flow of work, and yet, of course, they're in debt to someone. Obviously, of course, no matter how much work a mechanic has to do, they're in debt. Of course, they want to pay off their bill. Now, her boyfriend is actually a police officer who used to be a street racer. So he basically, the whole time he's kind of plugging through the movie, chasing street racers, and especially another one of our main characters, the pizza guy. He drives, he doesn't have his own car, actually. I think he drives up in a scooter the first time you see him. He sees that there's an underground race going on, and he borrows a BMW M7 that's sitting nearby, which, of course, you find out was at Erin's shop to be fixed, which I'm not really sure what was wrong with it, but anyway, he borrows it, wins the race, of course gets it beat up in the process, then says, oh, well, I'll just use the winning share of the money to pay for it, and basically, of course, you realize that what he won in that little, backwoods, illegal street race is going to be like less than a quarter of what he needs to actually fix the car. The owner comes back, of course, starts to argue with Erin. The guy, he does actually step up and admit, it's like, hey, I'm the one who took the car, I'm the reason, it's not her fault. Of course she still blames Erin because she left the car with Erin, but somehow, the owner of the M7 is intrigued by him. The fact that it's like, okay, you took my car and you won a race, so you must be pretty good, because as far as we know, that M7 was completely stock. Again, as I said, looking at the cars it was racing against, still not very surprising that it would have won. But, And going on ahead, you find out that, of course, the lady who owns the BMW is very rich. Owns a lot. Owns a lot of other cars. Has a very rich husband. At first, and she's married to a very rich guy. Of course, she's intrigued by Pizza Boy. No real reason as to why, other than the fact that he won a race with her car. But decides immediately that she wants to have an affair with him, which he's not really comfortable with, but then is like 100% okay with it when she says, "Oh well, my husband and I are in an open relationship." It's like, I don't care who he sleeps with, he doesn't care who I sleep with. It's like, wow, that's a hell of a relationship you guys are in. It's no, it's it's like, I'm sorry, but I know most people would not be comfortable with that situation. But of course, he's just fine with it now after she says that. Ugh. So that's another problem. It's like, really, the end of the movie, the money bailout basically comes because your rich patroness is in an open relationship with her rich husband. Terrific. So, moving on from my disgust. Well, the Pizza Boy somehow gets in trouble with the. No, doesn't get in trouble with. He just somehow gets in good with the Russian mobster who has the 1JZ Supra, and he basically says, "All right, I want you to drive for me." Well, somehow they don't think that they're going to be able to win the race, but the mobster says basically, "I'll pay off. I'll forgive the debt that Aaron's garage owes if you win this race for me." So of course he's got to. However, this is another one of those points where the writing is really bad, because he stops the police officer. The police officer has been following him because he thinks that Pizza Boy has been hitting on Aaron, which he was at first a little bit, but then he backed off when Rich Lady comes along. So, but anyway, police officer guy's still pretty annoyed at Pizza Boy. So at one point, basically, Pizza Boy leads him on a little chase through the city, then basically stops the car, and turns around to face the police officer and says, "We need to talk." And then he says a line which doesn't make any sense at all, because at this point, even though it was mentioned that the police officer used to be a street racer, there's never been anything to show that the police officer was actually a good street racer in any way. Whereas we actually have seen that Pizza Boy is an excellent driver. However, Pizza Boy then suddenly says, "You're the better racer, everybody knows it." I was like, really? Because we haven't seen that at all. In fact, he was kind of leaving police officer in the dust during this chase until he stopped. And it's just like, so Pizza Boy goes to this illegal race. He's not sure he can win it. But somehow during the process of the race, throughout going in and out and all this around this warehouse area, he manages to stop the car and switch places with the police officer, who then takes over and wins the race. Again, like I said, not any reason shown, never shown that he's actually that good a racer or whatever. Movie over. It's like, the whole plot makes no sense. It's terrible. It's badly written. It's 90% of it is badly acted. It's just and just on the other edge of cars here, with the exception of the BMW M7, which of course wasn't really an M7. They body modded it up. I think they body modded an M5 or a 5 Series sort of up with a body kit. But anyway, with the exception of that, the most valuable car in this is a heavily riced Nissan 350Z or Z33. That's just absolutely looks absolutely ridiculous, and it's like, that's the most expensive car you had in the movie. It's like it just, again, like I said, goes to show the budget was next to nothing. The racing scenes are terrible. There's basically nothing redeeming about this movie. I gave because of the supercars at least look cool in that, I gave, Redline a 2 out of 10. This one gets a 1 out of 10. This is just complete crap. So, that's all for now. I've kind of gone along on this one because I wanted to get these two out of the way. There's nothing special about either one of them. If you want to look for bad movies, you can watch them for being entertainingly bad, but that's about it. So next time, my next car racing movie will in fact be the movie that I've been building up for a long time. One of the reasons why I didn't get to it before was my computer had to be reconstructed, and I lost my original review that I had actually recorded back when I was still in Omaha. One of my friends had helped me record it, and it's really too bad. But next time we will be going back to the asylum for 200 miles per hour. Until then, I'm Speculative Dude, taking for what it's worth. Speculative Dude, out.